The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
La Mantequilla de Cacahuete! Hey, hello and welcome to Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. And it's going to be a fun show. A lot of news happening in the Cincinnati sports sphere. The biggest, of course, being Tee Higgins getting a franchise tag. We knew this was going to happen. It happened. And now we get to talk about it as if we haven't talked about it 1,000 times before. But now we get to talk about it like it's actually a real thing, because it is. As I mentioned, I'm filling in for Justin Kenner today. We've got Jacob Tissett and Elliot Rearing in the room. Hello, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. I will say it feels good outside today. Yesterday was a little chilly. Today it's a cool 50 degrees, so I'm ready to rock. I don't know what was going on upstairs. Usually I have a little pregame bathroom break, and I go upstairs today, and it looks like SWAT was up on the third floor. I see a fire truck right outside our studio.
There's 2 fire trucks and an ambulance.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, because there were a lot of medical personnel and people up there. A lot of them. Like, I want to say 30 of them.
Hope everyone's okay.
I do hope. It looked like it didn't look like anybody
Were they
was
in the
rushing.
headlines section or one of the other?
No, they were on the other side. They were on the
Pet
by
supplies
the
and
service elevator. Yeah.
They smelled those bananas, and
That's-
we got to
that-
get an ambulance.
That's what it was. But yeah, it's a good day. It's a good little day today on Tuesday.
Whenever you get like solidly above 40 in this time of year, it feels great. So.
I'm starting to get used to it though. To where like in January when it was 30 degrees and sunny, it felt like spring. Mm-hmm. Now it's 30 degrees and sunny, and it doesn't. Like, it feels legitimately cold.
Yeah.
I told these guys, hand up, honesty hour here. Forgot that I was supposed to host today until about 20 minutes ago. I text these guys. I was doing my morning routine. I was out on a run. I was about a mile away from my house, mile and a half away from my house, and it popped into my brain as I'm just chugging along. I was like, oh, Justin asked me to host the show. So I text these guys. I think it was like 9:25. I was like, hey, guys, I'll be in, and I got to go home and take a shower. I'll be in there as quick as possible. But we're here, and we got a great show for you. Casey McAllister. Nice to see your smiling face, my fellow WWE fan. I thought you eloquently described what was going on in the WWE yesterday. I thought it was a great job.
Yeah, I thought I was a very knowledgeable fan, only being a fan for 3 weeks. I thought I eloquently explained the situation.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Sold a soul.
I did. Yeah, he sold his soul. He sold it to the final boss, and it was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy event. Last night, on the other hand, my favorite wrestler, Gunther.
The ring general.
That's right, the ring general. Took out Otis. Those bombs.
Hey, don't laugh at the world heavyweight champion.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at the pronunciation.
Hey, don't laugh at him. You know what? It's funny that wrestling. So I was a big wrestling fan when I was a kid, and about every 4 or 5 years, I get into it for like 4 months, get really into it. And this is currently that time when I'm really into it. And it's funny because I didn't realize how much cross-integration there was between people that watch Chatterbox Sports and people that are wrestling fans, which is really cool. So, like, in the Discord, I get to talk about wrestling sometimes. But we're not going to do that today because I thought you guys talked about the heel turn perfectly yesterday.
By you guys, you mean Casey?
It was great. It's the biggest story in sports. Maybe the biggest story in the world. Who cares what's happening with that war? Now we get to start off the show with a headline.
Oh.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
Yes.
I still like the middle of the headline sound so much better.
I think there's a little sound that Casey sometimes forgets to cut out, and that's the best sound there is. So we'll start with the Reds. Yesterday they win a thriller, a spring training thriller. Nick Lodolo tosses 3 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs. Terrible. Brent Suter, he tossed 2 innings of scoreless baseball. He struck out 2. Ellie, another hit and 2 more walks.
Ooh.
Absolutely incredible, hitting .538 this spring. Friedel adding a couple of hits there. He's hitting .350 for the spring. CES, he had a double. He's hitting .270 for the spring. A lot of guys hitting very, very well right now. So I guess I'm going to take this and I'm going to say the Reds are going to be really, really good this year. Every single time they win a spring training game, this is what's going to happen. And every time they lose, I'm going to say, spring training. Doesn't matter. So that's how this goes.
That's actually exactly how you treat spring training.
Yeah.
Is whatever preconceived opinions you have,
Sure.
they fortify it. They can't negate it.
No.
Like if something's big, if you really think this player is going to have a great season, and then has a great spring training. Like I'm telling you. But if he sucks, you're like, it's just spring training. Who cares? It's only there to fortify your opinion.
Correct. And that's why I love it. I don't really watch a lick of it, but I'll tell you what, it's fun to talk about it the next day for about 5 seconds. Astros, this is an interesting MLB nugget. The Astros are planning to play Jose Altuve out in left field for most of the year.
Oh, wow.
They announced that, so good for him. I guess we're going to have another infielder and the outfielder. Good for the old Astros.
Is Jose Altuve a Hall of Famer, or does the cheating scandal taint that career?
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I would give him. I would give it to him. I don't think that they took away the World Series or anything. So as of right now, it still stands. Rob Manfred.
Yeah, it's like he's a no doubt Hall
If
of
they
Famer
took away
without the cheating thing.
Yeah, if they took away the World Series or gave him some sort of real punishment, I know they got a couple little bit suspensions in there, but if there was a real punishment, maybe you could put an asterisk. But if it's still there, it's still there, I guess. Good for Jose Altuve. People forget he wouldn't take off his shirt, wouldn't take off the jersey. NBA news: the Mavericks, they get blown off the court last night by the Kings, 122-98. Kyrie Irving went down with a knee injury. So if you're keeping score, and not that we would keep score on this, they seem to be down. I looked yesterday, 5 starters.
And how many people start in basketball?
5.
Right.
5 starters since prioritizing health and trading Luka Doncic. So that's a tough go at it for the old Dallas Mavericks.
At least Luka's not playing well.
No, you wouldn't want that.
He's finally looking comfortable, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
You wouldn't want that. And he is playing, right? He's healthy
a
right
lot
now?
and at a high level.
Okay.
He just had like 30 points a couple nights ago. He
Yeah.
was stinking for a while there.
Oh yeah, for sure. He said it was he was pretty upset and took a while to get comfortable in LA, but I would imagine you would be.
It's got to be pretty shell-shocking to like be a prodigy as he was.
Oh yeah.
And everyone wants you to play basketball for them like the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then someone along the way just like, we don't want you to play basketball for us. That's got to be pretty shocking.
Every offseason when people list the most untouchable players in the NBA, you see your name first on that list, and then all of a sudden you're traded in the middle of the night.
And your whole old team just calls you fat and slow.
that
and
doesn't
want you
work
there.
either.
That's
That's a bad break. That's literally a bad breakup because that's exactly what happened. They realized they made a mistake, but like, no, you don't get it. Like I was emotionally abused.
Yeah.
SGA, NBA news, some more NBA news. SGA dropped his 4th 50-point game of the season, trying to get that MVP for the Thunder. The Thunder win 137-128. The Hawks, they win at the buzzer last night, 132-130. They take down the Grizzlies. Moving over to college basketball, 3rd-ranked Houston, they fend off Kansas, 65-59 in Houston. That was a good little basketball game. 2nd-ranked Duke, they destroyed Wake Forest 93-60. 5 of their last 6 games, they have won by at least 30 points. They have won by at least 30 points in 5 of their last 6. The one that they didn't, they won by 20. So Duke seems to be getting hot at the right time. Still college basketball news. There was a couple conference championship games, I guess is what you want to call it. Austin Peay, they lose 90-64 to North Alabama. So North Alabama season stays alive.
No, I love Austin Peay.
I love the Austin Peay too. They're always one of my favorite teams.
They're my favorite P.
Queens University. They fend off Dunk City. Remember Dunk City?
Dunk City's fun.
Well, their run ends. Florida Gulf Coast, their season is officially over. 71-65, they lose. Jacksonville, the great University of Jacksonville, 78-67, they beat Eastern Kentucky. And finally, you have Lipscomb, the old Lipscomb. 94-66 over Central Arkansas.
The old Lipscomb.
The old Lipscomb.
Dollar if you can tell me what city.
Nashville, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Moving on out of college basketball, you have some NFL news, some franchise tag news. We know the big one, but some that you might not know. Chiefs guard Trey Smith, $23.5 million on the tag.
What a cheap organization. Just pay your star players.
Yeah, that's right. Bengals are on the list as well. $26.2 million for old Tee Higgins. Cowboys, Osa Odigizua?
Correct.
Bang. $25.1 million, and they're negotiating, I believe that.
They don't expect him to be tagged by the deadline today. They expect to get something done.
Vikings, surprisingly not expected to tag Sam Darnold.
So apparently they were supposed to tag Sam Darnold,
Okay.
and his agent just called the GM and berated him on the phone.
Really?
Basically said, you're not going to do that. And the Vikings said, okay.
That's an interesting, bold strategy for a quarterback who's had one good year. The Dolphins, not expected to tag safety Javon Holland, and the Bucks are not expected to tag wide receiver Chris Godwin.
They asked the Bucks about why they wouldn't tag Chris Godwin, and the Bucks said, we'd love to have Chris Godwin back. A tag would be a 150% raise.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy. But those are your headlines.
So Chris Godwin's going to be an unrestricted free agent.
Correct. Yeah, coming off a torn ACL, so he won't be healthy for camp, so that'll probably knock him down a few pegs, but one of the best wide receivers on the market, especially if Tee Higgins doesn't hit it.
Right. He's going to get paid. There's a
For
bubble.
sure.
There's a bubble there. There's a bubble there. And, we're going to talk about that a little more in a few minutes here, but it is interesting, the whole franchise. Like Sam Darnold, you said that he berated the Minnesota Vikings, and Elliott's like, he's had one good year. The thing is he's probably going to make more money on the open market, right? Like somebody will give him 3 years, $100 million, somewhere around that range to come play quarterback. And it is so crazy that he took a team that we perceived as probably the worst in that division, the best division in football, it showed to be this year. And he took that team, having no success at all, and took them to week 18 with chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. But because he sucked in that game and because he sucked in the playoff game, we're like, all right, he sold Sam Darnold again. Like, who cares? Who cares what happened in the first 17 weeks? It's going to be interesting what happens with Sam Darnold, not just this year, but with the rest of his career. I think you guys talked about Brock Purdy yesterday, and there was, when Brock Purdy was playing really well and the 49ers were going to the Super Bowl, everyone's like, why aren't people giving this guy more credit, more respect? And those people also say the only reason you're not giving him more credit is because he was the last pick in the draft, to which people that weren't giving Brock Purdy credit would simply say, correct. That is why we're not giving him more credit, because when you're the last pick in the draft, there's clearly something missing there, whether it be your physical traits, whether it be, obviously not with Brock Purdy, but time spent played college football. Like, we don't have a lot of tape. Obviously, Brock Purdy, I think, started the most college football games ever, so that wasn't the case for him. But that's the very reason that we are kind of expecting him to fall off at some point. Same thing could be said for Sam Darnold, who was an early round pick, had all those traits, had all these things happen for him. So, you keep holding out hope. You keep going I think there's something there. And then you finally see it, and you can still kind of project that he could get better. I think he's Joe Burrow's age.
Yeah.
So there's something there. I don't know what's going to happen with Sam Darnold. Everyone that talks to him says he's a great guy, says he's a hard worker and all these things.
I think the question everyone's asking about Darnold now is the 2 bad games last year an outlier to the 16, or are the 16 games last year an outlier to the 6 years? To the 7 seasons. Right. I think that's the big question. And if you can talk yourself into him being that 16-game quarterback for the right system, then I think he's a no-brainer to pay. But we have a lot of tape, and then when it mattered most last year, he reverted back to that bad tape. So I think it's a tough conversation.
So let me ask this simple question. I don't know what Sam Darnold is projected to make. I think we can all agree that he'll probably get 3 years, something in that range, maybe $100 million. I don't know. Would you rather have a Brock Purdy situation or go into the next year with a Sam Darnold, who is a wild card, but you're not going to have to spend $40, $50 million on? You're going to spend probably 35 in that range, and you might get something better. Who would you rather have going into next year, Brock Purdy at 50 or Sam Darnold at 35?
I'd absolutely take Sammy Darnold. I'd absolutely take the chance instead of paying a guy who I definitely don't believe in $55 million. No disrespect to Brock Purdy, but I wouldn't trust that guy to win any significant game ever in his entire career. That means no Super Bowls. I don't care how many NFC Championship games he can win. No Super Bowl rings he will finish his career with. Sam Darnold, again, I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl either. I just don't have to pay him $30 million extra. I think I can survive with Sam Darnold.
I really don't think those contracts are going to be that far apart. I think
really
they're both
think
going to
Sam
get
is gonna
about
get, like,
40.
okay.
I think they're both going to get about 40.
I think
on
40
the
is
open
really
market.
high. Really,
I think it's
really
high for
high.
both of them. But I think when you see guys like Trevor Lawrence making 55 and Dak Prescott getting 60, it's hard for those guys who have won a little bit more than those other quarterbacks to accept such a big pay cut comparatively. So I think they're both going to get right around 40, in which case I think they're a very similar conversation.
You know what's crazy is if Sam Darnold wins a playoff game, he's getting 50.
Correct.
If Brock Purdy made the postseason this year, he's getting 55.
Yep.
Like it is absolutely insane to think that like just those two little things, just how you end, just the most recent thing, recency bias, are what the difference between $15 million, something that most people watching this show will never see, including us right
Very
here.
true.
We won't see that kind of money. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the big news here in Cincinnati. Tee Higgins, franchise tag for the second straight year. That and more on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. 1410 Wing AM. So welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner, Jacob Tissett, Elliott Rear, and Casey McAllister in the room. Kenner will be back tomorrow, presumably. But big news here in Cincinnati, something that we knew inevitably was going to happen. We've been talking about it, what feels like, for the majority of my life now, which is Tee Higgins signing a franchise tag. And kind of what happens, this is something that we assumed was going to happen because we didn't want Tee Higgins to go out into the open market. We wanted to negotiate an extension. Obviously, Duke Tobin's comments from the Combine shed a little more light on that, and we'll get to that in a second. But very quickly, when it comes to Tee Higgins being here long term, for a long time, the NFL had changed for over a decade now. The NFL had been changing rules to be more offensive friendly, which obviously has paid into why it's become, or just more cemented its place atop the throne of professional sports here in North America, in the United States of America. And because of that, you've seen teams kind of trend to the offensive side of the ball. You know, normally signing head coaches that have offensive backgrounds, getting more wide receivers making more money. And if there's one thing I think I learned from last season, because I was all on board for that, the future of the offense, or the future of the NFL, was through the air. Offense, passing it a lot, wide receivers, get as many weapons for a young quarterback as you possibly can. You're going to win a lot of games. But the one thing I learned last year was we probably went a little too far when it came to grading running backs. I think Derrick Henry got $8 million to play for the Baltimore Ravens. I think Saquon Barkley got $14 to play for the Eagles. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl, so they're a little ahead. So everything in football, which is a punch, counter punch league, it is a reaction and a counter reaction. Things cycle back into where we were going through the air, having as many weapons as possible, throwing the ball. Now you're seeing teams, all right, they're getting a little smaller, linebackers getting quicker, cornerbacks, safeties, more on coverage, not about run stopping. Teams are going, all right, if that's what you're going to do defensively, I'm going to give my counterpunch now, which is we're going to run the ball a whole lot more. Obviously, the Eagles did that with Saquon. Obviously, the Ravens have been doing that. You look at a team like the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, one of the best offensive minds, he did that this past year, even with a young quarterback that seemed to be trending upwards in Jordan Love. He's like, all right, we're just going to run the ball, and we're going to do that a whole lot more. I think we all thought that the Eagles were a better team when Jalen Hurts was in the background, not the forefront. So in an era of that, you might be asking yourself, well, why are the Cincinnati Bengals trying to commit themselves to a lot of offensive talent on the perimeter? Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. Why they've still got a young controllable back in the backfield. Why are they letting Joe Mixon go? Why are all these things happening? And while you can look at the trends of the NFL and say, all right, shouldn't we be going with the trend? Shouldn't we be getting heavier in the box defensively? Shouldn't we be focusing more on a ground game? I think this offense really does churn at a higher level when there is significant ground threat. All that being said, I'm with you. But I think it was Casey McAllister, the wise Casey McAllister, that told me this one time. And it'll stick with me because I was ranting and raving about the Jesse Bates move that the Bengals made. And I'll admit that I was wrong there. I held out as long as I could. I held out and said, this is what smart teams do. They don't pay safeties elite money. Casey looked at me, and eloquently as he ever is, just said, I just don't want the Bengals to let elite talent walk out the door. And something clicked in my head. Yeah. All the strides that the Bengals have made in the past few years, 10 years, 5 years, ever since Joe Burrow has been here. Renovations to the stadium. Obviously the success on the field, making the Super Bowl and going to the AFC Championship. And we're starting to go like, are we no longer the Bengals? Are we no longer there? We're still dealing with a stacked deck, folks. We don't have Howie Roseman controlling this front office. We don't have the best scouting department running this team. So when we do get elite talent in this building, it's best not to let it go. You can see the trends going the way of, hey, there is a bubble probably in the wide receiver market. Let's not feed into it more. But Tee Higgins is elite as it gets. And a year ago, I would have told you, I think I did tell you, Tee Higgins going to play on one franchise tag, let him walk out the door after that. But I think we saw what this offense looks like with Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase on the field. And you can say, well, the big question is always with Tee Higgins, yeah, we agree that he's elite, but he's not on the field enough. I would simply say, if Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase aren't out on that field, this team's ceiling, it's not as high as we think it is. Those Super Bowl futures, those AFC Championship futures, even those AFC North futures don't happen without Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase on the field. So I open it up to the floor. With all that being said, Jacob, host of Chatterbox Bengals, here, what is your initial reaction to Tee Higgins? And as we mentioned, this is something we knew was going to happen. What's your initial reaction to the news finally breaking?
I wish it rocked my day like it did so many other people. I feel like, we've been talking about this for a while. So I was mostly caught off guard by how shocked a lot of people were and how doomsday a lot of people went with this tag, saying there's no way he stays. What's the trade package? Is he going to sit out? All that stuff never even crossed my mind because we knew this was going to happen, I thought, today, but it inevitably happened yesterday. And I think the only thing that really changed from that, which versus what we thought going into the start of this week when we knew something was going to have to be done with Tee Higgins, is they weren't close at all. When Elliot read through the tag candidates there, the one that stuck out to me was Oso Odighizuwa, a guy Casey and I had talked about the Bengals potentially signing in free agency. The Cowboys announced that they were going to tag him, something the Bengals did with Tee Higgins weeks ago, but they still haven't because they're deep in negotiations and they're close to getting an extension done. That's what a lot of us thought was going to be going on with Tee yesterday and today up until that deadline at 2 p.m., and obviously that wasn't the case. So I guess my question is, how far apart are they, and how far apart could they possibly be? Because the tag is $26 million, and every highest estimate for Tee Higgins on the open market has him making no more than 31 or 32. So that's a $4 to $6 million difference. Is that really the gap that the Bengals are that much, that hung up on? I think it's probably years and not annual value is what I'm getting at here. I think Tee Higgins probably wants longer term security in 4 years, and the Bengals probably aren't willing to go over 3. That would be my guess for what's holding them up now.
Yeah, the holdup has to be not just time, but the guaranteed money. You say that the holdup can't be $4 to $6 million, right, which is the annual value of the contract. You're dealing more with like 26, $30 million because he's probably going to need at least 55 to 60 million guaranteed over, a 4-year, $110 million deal, whatever it is. And that's something that the Bengals probably are a little weary of, considering his injury history. Elliot, I don't know what your opinion is on the whole Tee Higgins.
There's a couple things here. Tee Higgins switched his agent, and once he did that, I think that was him truly, and this is not like some sort of weird Cincinnati story and yada, yada, yada. I truly believe he wanted to stay in Cincinnati. He wants to stay in Cincinnati. He switched his agent. I'm going to have the same agent as Jamar Chase. We're all going to work together, and we're all going to try to get deals done. I think that was a part of the reason he did that, because I think if he would have stayed with his other agent, he probably could have gotten more money elsewhere, or he would have at least driven up the price here in Cincinnati higher than it is. My question would be for the Bengals, if you're willing to pay him $26.2 million fully guaranteed right now, how far away can you really be? I mean, Jacob kind of just said it there. Are we fighting over $4 million a year? Probably not. He probably wants to be a Bengal for as long as Joe Burrow is a Bengal, for as long as Jamar Chase is a Bengal. And I don't know if the Bengals are willing to commit to that. That seems like a mistake to me, because I think if you're willing to pay a guy $26.2 fully guaranteed, you should be willing to have a commitment for him in the future. I think that's the way it should be. And for the record, that is the report. That the report has been and will be until something goes wrong, that the Bengals are trying to get an extension done. They're still trying to work on this. I don't think as of right now that it's going to happen. I have a lot of doubts that it's going to happen. I don't want to read into so much of what players post on social media, but it's been very clear since Joe Burrow started doing it, Trey Hendrickson started doing it, Jamar Chase started doing it. Everyone has been so vocal about paying the guys here in Cincinnati. If they have to do that, if they feel like they have to do that, I feel like that's them knowing what's going on behind the scenes and making it a big fuss to kind of put pressure on the Bengals organization. I don't think they all do that. I don't think Tee Higgins is posting out cap, or yesterday he just posted out tag with a period and no words. And Jamar Chase put on his Instagram story the silly Joe Burrow face. And all these guys are kind of like ganging up a little bit on the Bengals, and I commend them for it, because the Bengals notoriously probably not an organization that likes to pay everybody. But the Bengals' success moving forward revolves around the offense. I know you have to fix the defense, and I believe you can fix the defense even if you sign Tee Higgins, even if you sign Jamar Chase, even if you sign Joe Burrow, right? The Bengals have the funds. It's just, are they willing to do that? I don't know, and I don't think so. I started to have doubts on this whole thing the second Duke Tobin spoke out, and immediately after T kind of put the cap thing out there. Like I don't have any hope anymore. We all knew this was coming. You knew there was going to be a franchise tag. I'm sure Tee Higgins doesn't enjoy being back-to-back franchise tagged. He would like to see some commitment to a franchise where he's been a very, very, very damn good player. And he hears the support from his teammates. He wants to be here. And I think it's a little bit of an insult by the Bengals to squabble over what appears to be a couple $1 million in a couple extra years. That's just at least my opinion.
It's like I said, it's not just a couple $1 million, because it is at least $30-40 million of committed money that the Bengals have to pay a man. And to give just more context to the issue, if Tee Higgins would have signed a 2-year, $50 million deal last year before the franchise tag came out, that's essentially what he's getting.
Yeah, right.
Through 2 franchise tags. Says he got, 21 last year. He's getting 26 this year. Mm-hmm. That's $47 million over 2 years. That's pretty good money. That's all guaranteed money. He can play 1 game, right? Like, that's just what happens. So it's not like they're doing it. But I'm with you guys. So I started this segment off going on a long, incoherent, I'm sure, ramble about how the league seems to be, at least the elite teams, seem to be trending back to ground and pound, fill the boxes. Well, I mean, I guess the offenses are running the ball, being more run-centric, to which the counterpunch is going to be from these defense to get bigger linebackers, get a little bit slower, get run-stop guys. Are you guys scared? Seeing with, I keep calling it the wide receiver bubble, and I guess the context of that is we keep paying all these wide receivers 25, 30, and it's going to continue to go up till the bubble pops. Are we scared committing seemingly $70 million a year if we get the Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins deal done for a 4-year stretch. Are we scared about doing that, noticing the way that the NFL is trending back to a run-heavy offense?
I'm not, and because it's when you have Joe Burrow, he has to have elite talent to throw to. I mean, he doesn't have to. I would like to give my quarterback, who I'm paying $55 million, elite talent to throw to. That's how our offense hums. We score 35 a game. Our defense is just there for the ride. That's how we survive. And if you take weapons away from our franchise quarterback, then I'd be more scared about what our future looks like than what it will be if we pay T and Jamar $70 million, like you said. I think Joe Burrow would absolutely leave without hesitation if they don't get deals done with these two wide receivers, because he knows that there's no commitment to anybody else on the roster.
Yeah, how far are we away from being the best passing offense in the NFL? Extending Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. How far away are we from being one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL? That's a whole O-line and probably a second running back.
I'll tell you how far away we are from being the best ass in offense. 0, because
we
are.
I'm saying keep those guys here. So that's already done. And to become the best rushing offense in the NFL, that's 6 or 7 positions. So it's a much taller hill to climb. I think if we're going to keep an elite offense, the easiest way to do that is to keep our elite receivers.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this Tee Higgins thing, because there's a lot of layers to unpack. I do want to get Casey's opinion on this whole thing, as he's as big of a Bengals fan as the rest of us. But we're going to take a short break. When we come back, more Tee Higgins talk on 1410 Wing AM Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. Big news yesterday, really 2 big pieces of Bengals news. Kappa getting released, which you guys talked about on the show yesterday. I want to kind of touch on that later on in the show, but we're still talking about Tee Higgins, the franchise tag, all the noise around this. It's a weird spot as a Bengals fan, because there's 32 teams in the NFL. And out of the 32 teams, the Bengals certainly rank in the bottom 4th on relevant teams, or at least biggest fan bases. Before we got Joe Burrow, of course, that was the case. And now that we have Joe Burrow, we obviously are talked about in a whole lot of news. And I don't know how to describe what it's like hearing the Bengals talked about in national media all the time, because that's what you want. You want other people talking about the same thing that you talk about all the time. But now when it's negative, I don't like it a whole lot. I'll put that out there. I don't like when people talk badly about the Cincinnati Bengals, but that's what they're talking about in all of their complaints. The Bengals are cheap. The Bengals are a backwards franchise. They're not forward-thinking like the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not forward-thinking like name another NFL franchise. To which I'll say, you're right. That's fair. I think we're getting somewhere. I really do. I know it's 2 straight years of missing the postseason, and no one wants to talk about where we're headed as a franchise, but I still think we're getting there, though we were going so far uphill that we still got a long mountain to climb before we are thought of as a forward-thinking franchise. Of course, we're talking about the franchise that is so cash poor that they had to sell the naming rights of the stadium to pay for their franchise quarterback. That is just crazy to think about. I think, talk a lot on this show about net worths and billionaires and stuff like that, but man, it shows you where we're at as a franchise, that we couldn't even pay our franchise quarterback without having to sell something in the process. It's like buying the car, and to buy the car, you got to take out a second mortgage. So it's like, is this the most financially savvy thing? I don't know, but we need to get to work, so I guess we got to buy the car, and that's where we're at with this franchise. But Tee Higgins, I posed the question beforehand, are you scared going forward of the way that things are kind of trending? And I think you and I shared the same sentiment that, listen, The way this team wins is throwing the football, letting Joe Burrow drop back, letting him be protected, and letting him get the ball to Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, whoever else is going to be a part of the team. That question still remains to be seen as well. So, Casey, I'll open it up to you, even though you've got your headphones on. I don't know if you're ready for this, but I was simply going to ask your opinion on this whole Tee Higgins thing and where you think the Bengals are headed, and just your overall thoughts on the franchise tag.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of a different thought process than most people do, because I'm like, Tee Higgins isn't the first domino. Like, the tag, I guess, is the first domino to fall in the offseason, whatever. But that's not the first priority. It's Jamar Chase. And they're not going to sign Tee Higgins before they sign Jamar Chase. I think that's kind of like, I think that's just malpractice if they do, because they're already in this negotiation. And rumor has it that they're not close. So why would they sign Tee Higgins to this massive extension if they can't get Jamar Chase done? So that is what it really boils down for me. And plus, we've heard things that they're actually close with Tee Higgins. I think the first domino to fall in that whole offseason plan is Jamar Chase, then Tee, then the rest, Trey, and so on and so forth. But this was kind of inevitable. I think we talked about it a year ago, and we said, what makes more sense? Is it to franchise tag Tee Higgins 2 years in a row or give him a long-term extension? Well, it looks like we were the smart ones in the room saying we should just get a long-term extension done, because now you're in the same boat that you were. You're not in the same boat. You're in a worse situation than you were before. You're going to have to pay him more. It's beneficial for teams to pay guys early, and this is probably the number one example as to why. You could have had Tee Higgins at 25 per year and 50 million, 55 million guaranteed. Now you're looking at 30 million per year and like 60, 65 million guaranteed. So it's just how the process that the Bengals go through every year for signing guys to long-term extensions, it's the Stone Age. It's so bad. It's such a malpractice nowadays that it costs them, and it's going to cost them now, just based off of the rumors. And I know they're rumors, but the fact that Jamar Chase's deal is in peril right now, that we don't have this agreement, that there's miscommunication, what feels like, between Duke Tobin and the front office and the ownership, that's a major concern for me. I know a lot of people say, like, oh, they're just rumors. Diana Rusi doesn't know what she's talking about. What have they shown in the past 5 years that makes you think otherwise? They didn't sign Jesse Bates. They franchise tagged Tee Higgins. They've not been able to keep anyone except for Joe Burrow. I don't know. I am a little bit nervous as to what the process is right now for them. I'm nervous about the tweets that they've been sending out, the Tee Higgins tagged. Like, it's more of like an annoyance at this point. But even Jamar Chase posted something on Instagram where he's giving the side eye, the Joe Burrow side eye, like, what's that about? Why are you tagging Tee Higgins? Like, that just, I don't know. There's some sort of weird funk in the air that I don't like.
Well, and you talk about like paying Tee Higgins early, and I agree that if the Bengals paid guys early, all of this would be a non-story. I mean, you paid Jamar Chase last offseason when you went to him and say, here, please take a deal, and he's like, nah, you're lowballing me. If you would have done that, we'd be in a better situation today than we are. Same thing with Tee Higgins. But there were questions. I remember last year, probably around week 3, on this very show, we all sat here and said, this is why you don't pay Tee Higgins, because he hasn't played a full season. He hasn't in his entire career. I love Tee Higgins. I'd like him to be back. I think he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But you didn't pay him early, probably because you had doubts of whether or not he's going to give you 16 games, 15 games, 14 games on a consistent basis. You had those questions.
It is a little hindsight 2020.
It 100% is.
But you're in the situation now, right? Like, you're in this negotiation with him. You want to extend him long term. And from what we heard from Duke Tobin, that's been the case for years. So if that was the case, then why didn't you get it done? There's just the messaging is not it's not cohesive. There's some stuff that is seeping through the cracks here through their PR team, and it's starting to make them look kind of kind of bad.
So this is where I will hopefully not put my foot in my mouth when talking about this. And please, Jacob or Casey, correct me if I'm wrong in anything I'm about to say. I mean, the reason that the Bengals have been hesitant to get these deals done in the past is quite literally because we are a cash poor franchise. Like the Eagles owner, I think one day on the show, I think I even argued with Elliot in the chat about this. We're talking, I don't know the Eagles owner. He's worth $1 billion more than Mike Brown is. Of course, the valuations come from your ownership stake in your franchise and what its net worth is. But he also sold stake in the company for about $8 billion. So he got the bank account flush with cash so that he could pay these guys up front, get those salary caps or signing bonuses, forward ended so that it's not as big on the salary cap on the back end. The Bengals are reluctant to do that, and therefore they can't make these same deals that other teams can. I will take the Bengals at their word. I will take Duke Tobin at his word when he says we are trying to get deals done with Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, Trey Hendrick, trying to keep the band together. I'll take them at their word when they say that. Because if whether he's just saying that to kind of keep morale high in the city, to say the right things around the agents, or to make it look like they're on the right side if things go haywire. Whatever the reason, I'm taking you at face value if you do say those things. Because I do believe that the Bengals are trying to keep this whole thing intact. It's just so frustrating because they aren't as forward-thinking as other franchises to get it done and in a creative way. They're just trying to get it done with, hey, this is how much money we have to spend. This is what we're going to spend. Instead of doing it, hey, we'll spend a little bit more here, and then on the back end, it'll be like fudging the system, making it work like that. Bengals can't do that, won't do that, whatever it is. So I got to ask you a question. If the worst comes to worst, and the Bengals, whatever is your Armageddon, whether it be no Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase isn't signed, extended long-term, Trey Hendrickson is gone, whatever it is, who does the onus fall on? Is it Duke Tobin? Is it Mike Brown? Who gets more of the blame?
Well, neither. It's the Blackburns. It's Troy and Katie. They're the ones that sign these contracts. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's Duke Tobin saying all the right things, and I believe every word that comes out of his mouth. He has no power. He's quite literally powerless. What he does is he drafts the players and finds out if they're good. And we found out these guys are good. Yeah. Now it's time for the owners to step in and do their job. And if they aren't willing to pony up the money, it doesn't matter how much these guys want to stay or how bad Duke Tobin wants to keep them or how much Joe Burrow thinks Tee's a necessity and how great Trey Hendrickson is. None of that matters if the ownership's not willing to pony up. So it falls on their shoulders. And then they are who I will be mad at if it doesn't work. And I don't think anyone else really deserves any blame. I think it's 100% on the ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to blame certainly anybody beneath the top dog because it's what I do with the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not going to blame Nick Kroll. I'm not going to blame
Get Tobin.
Get
Tobin.
Get Tobin.
I'm not going to blame.
Duped.
I'm not going to blame anyone below him because at the end of the day, you can only work with what you've been given. And the Bengals don't give a lot. Do you know how many scouts do we have? 2? We got one guy running around out there.
4.
We got one guy running around out there. And I think that the Bengals, the way they've operated for a long time, they haven't changed that much. Duke Tobin, he's been here since what year? 1995.
Yeah, Reds were winning playoff series.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just think
28 teams in the MLB.
if you're going to blame anybody for all of this madness, it's the people who pay the contracts. It's the people who give you the money to work with, and that's the ownership.
It's interesting. It truly is interesting. So I probably infamously said on this show one time I was hosting when Joe Burrow kind of started being outward, voice his opinions. And I said, I think that's great. I like putting pressure on people of authority. I like if this is what Joe Burrow wants, he's maybe my favorite athlete ever. If this is what Joe Burrow wants, let's at least hear his opinion on it to keep these guys around. Obviously, Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins make Joe Burrow look better and vice versa, to be honest. Do you think – I saw someone put T-Brookie put this in the chat. When the fan base realized that they are being played by the players' agents to drive up the prices of the players, Are you willing to pay $32 per year and $44 per year for Jamar? Are you worried that they are getting too outspoken? That if we give in, I don't want to call them, what's the old saying? We don't negotiate with terrorists. But I don't want to call Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase that. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But if we start giving in to every time Trey Hendrickson walks in to the front office and says, I need an extension, I need more money, I played great last year, even though he's on a 3-year deal, a team-friendly deal. If we start adhering to every time a player has a booming season, what does that say for the franchise? Does that scare you at all about just letting their voices get too loud? We've seen this in the NBA. We've given probably too much leeway to the players of the NBA that they pretty much run ramshot over the entire league. Are you scared that this might happen in the Bengals locker room?
It's a horrendous organizational strategy, and that's why you extend guys early in their contracts.
Correct.
The Bengals force themselves into this scenario that leaves them so vulnerable to lose star players for nothing. We saw it with Jesse Bates. We saw it with Andrew Whitworth. We're still trying to replace Kevin Zeitler. These star players that we get in Cincinnati, how few of them there are, we can't keep for whatever reason it is, and I don't know why, but it's terrible.
I was going to say, good organizations have less of this problem.
Right.
Like you don't go to the Atlanta Braves and you don't hear anybody else complaining in that organization about, I need more money and I need it now, because they pay everybody 10 and a half years early. Yeah. So it's I say that, sure, we shouldn't give in to, a player's demand anytime he wants more money. But at the same time, he's only doing that here because he knows that's the only way that he's going to get any sort of deal remotely close to getting done. That's the only way. Joe Burrow has to go out on 15 different podcasts, not promoting anything except that he wants his organization to pay his teammates. You don't see that anywhere. It just doesn't happen.
His all-pro teammates.
His all-pro teammate. You don't see that. You don't see other teams, not reportedly, quote-unquote, not close to getting deals done with a player that just won the Triple Crown. Yeah. Not close? How are you not close? You have to be close. You know the answer to the test. He is the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Tee Higgins, again, if you're just going by simple math here, he's not the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL because that's your other wide receiver. So I'd imagine he'd be, $5-10 million off. And maybe I'm wrong on this, and T's asking for $40 million too. But I have a hard time believing when he switched agents to go be with Jamar's agent that he's like, you know what, we're going to get the same amount of money. That's why I'm doing this. I don't think that's why they're doing this. And I think you're starting to see this Bengals organization get tested in a way they haven't been tested in a very, very long time.
If Tee Higgins is asking for $35 million, he can enjoy New England. I mean, I think that's pretty cut and dry. I don't think there's any way the Bengals would be able to get that done, both with cash and annual value.
And I think here's the most important thing. The Bengals can survive without Tee Higgins.
Correct.
The Bengals can absolutely thrive, be as good of an offense without Tee Higgins. You have to draft a wide receiver that's not 24/7 at the casino.
Or a tight end.
Or a tight end. But you gotta have a plan in place. The plan last year was to draft Jermaine Burton as the replacement, a guy who's had a ton of issues. How's that going? Not very well, because we're nowhere closer than where we were at the beginning of last year's draft. We're so far behind the 8 ball here, and now I'm thinking to myself, okay, if we're not going to have any plan in place, you have to pay Tee Higgins. Yeah. Because if you're not going to have a plan, then what do we got here?
I think let's not say that they don't have a plan, because they had a plan.
The plan's just not worked.
The plan didn't work, and that happens sometimes. So I'm not going to sit here and go,
how many plans in a row haven't worked? 3?
A lot of plans.
Reader plan, Jesse Bates plan, Tee Higgins plan.
Jamar Chase plan.
Jamar Chase plan?
That plan didn't work. They tried to sign him last offseason.
I guess you're right. Yeah, that's 4
Didn't
plans.
Work. He said no thank you.
4 straight failed plans.
They're batting about 500 over the last 5 years, though. So I'll give them credit for that. They're on a losing streak, but they're still at the casino with as much money as they walked in with right now.
Okay.
Like 5 years ago, the plan was to, hey, we're gonna get this young quarterback, and we're just gonna put as much freaking talent around him on the offensive side, and it worked. And we're gonna get all these old guys, these established guys, to play on the defensive side, and that was the plan. Worked to perfection. Phase 2 of the plan, We'll see. It didn't go well. Hopefully phase 3, we bring it all back. Hopefully in phase 3, bring it all right back. I just want you guys, and I want all of us, as Bengals fans, as someone who, this city, the enjoyment of this city before we get to break, is so heavy on what Joe Burrow and the Bengals do in the fall and winter, that I want you guys to understand the duality of the problems at hand. And it's damned if they do, damned if they don't. Because if the Bengals do, and I think they should, sign all these guys to extension, because I am in favor of not letting elite talent walk out the door. I am in favor of not letting Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, Trey Hendrickson walk out that door, because elite talent is so hard to come by in this league, because elite talent hasn't walked through that door a whole lot in the last decade. I am in favor of all those guys staying put, but I also understand that if we do heed to what Tee Higgins wants, what he wants in a contract, if we want to give Jamar Chase what he wants, and they've earned it, if Trey Hendrickson gets what he wants and he's earned it, that a lot of people are going to be knocking on that door the next time they have a good season and they want more money. I want you guys to fully understand the duality of what comes. And maybe those are problems for a later date. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that is a bridge. There is a river coming up that we have to get across. Either way, whether it be new talent that we have to get in this door, more elite talent, or having to deal with prima donnas and a loud offseason every single season because we gave in to the guys in 2025. Either way, it's going to get loud, and it's going to be very loud for a long time. Unless, of course, you win the whole thing, baby. You do it all. You win that game in the second week of February, then who cares what happens? We're going to take a short break. We're going to talk more Bengals when we come back. It's Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner, 1410 Wing AM. Welcome back into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm filling in for Kenner, and Kenner's doing all right. He'll be back tomorrow. Jacob Tissett, Elliott Rearing, Casey McAllister in the room. Big news wasn't only that Tee Higgins signed the franchise tag, or got tagged, didn't sign anything, he got tagged. You're it. So he's gonna stick around. You didn't like that one?
That was good.
Just so silly. Sometimes we get silly on this show. Also, another roster cut. Kappa gone. It's gonna be a long list of roster cuts, but simply want to ask the question to the host of Chatterbox Bengals and the other people in the room. I know they talked about this at points yesterday. Is what is the answer to replace that interior line? One of the worst interior offensive line, the worst offensive interior line in the National Football League. That being said, we still scored more points than pretty much everybody in the league, so it still works. Maybe that quarterback's pretty stinking good. Maybe those wide receivers. You know what? Let's extend those guys. But what are the plans to solve that interior line? Is it going to be through free agency, or is it going to be in the draft?
I expect both, because I don't expect Cordell Volson to be a starting guard on this team either. And I think Cody Ford, if he's brought back, will be a depth piece. So I think there's going to be 2 starting guards added to the Bengals this offseason. I would guess one of them in the draft and one of them in free agency. We talked about it yesterday, but the Bengals meetings at the draft really lended themselves towards day 2 and day 3 interior offensive linemen. They avoided a lot of the no-doubt first-round guys, but they interviewed guys like Tate Ratledge and Jared Wilson, both the interior linemen from Georgia. As I noted yesterday, the 2 most athletic athletic linemen at the combine, which is a big change from the linemen that we've had under Joe Burrow. We've had one of the least athletic offensive lines in the entire NFL his entire tenure here. So getting one of those guys to be an athletic replacement for a guy like Alex Kappa, who was the poster child for an unathletic offensive line, that'd be a huge change and would allow you to do a lot more unique things, especially in the run game. Free agency-wise, I think someone that's really interesting to me is Pat McCary, because he's been in Baltimore for the last 4 seasons. He's played all 5 positions on the offensive line. His go-to position is guard, so he'd slide in there pretty easily. It seems like he's going to get around $7 million on the market, which I think is the range that the Bengals are going to want to attack. I don't think the Bengals are going to go spend $15, $20 million on an all-pro level guard or tackle. I think they're going to go get a bargain guy like we saw with Alex Kappa, like we saw with Trey Hendrickson when he was on the market the first time. They fill these holes with bargain pieces, and that's why I think the other one going a little older, a little more win now. You answered the question with the guy that started the question. Kevin Zeitler's a free agent from Detroit, and he's obviously a little bit more expensive, but on a 1-year deal, right about $6.5–7 million. That would be more guaranteed money than any other deal, because he is that 1-year older player. But I think that's a plug and play, no doubt one of the best guards in all of football. So there's a lot of options out there for the Bengals. 2 guys that we talked about earlier this year, Zach Martin, already retired, the Cowboys guard who's going to free agency. Brandon Sheriff contemplating that as well. So some of those top names on the guard list in free agency have already knocked themselves off. Casey has a few other names in free agency that he's liked to try to fix the Jackson Carman mistake of years in the past.
I just based off of the list that we have, there's not a lot of left guards, but some of the left guards that are available, and I know that Kappa plays right guard, but you can solve some of the issues by filling one of the positions, either left or right, in free agency, however you want to do it. Tevin Jenkins, I mean, he's a baller when he's on the field. He fits the size profile that they've been looking at recently with the new offensive lineman coach. He fits the arm length profile. The athleticism's there. And it's a guy that we should have took in the 2021 draft over Jackson Carman years ago. That was a huge mistake by the Bengals, not being able to draft Tevin Jenkins.
Well,
I think that they
don't forget the snow game in Buffalo.
It's true.
Don't forget the snow game in Buffalo.
Snow game in Buffalo. There's a couple guys at the right guard spot, like we talked about. Brandon Sheriff, that's a veteran possibility there. James Daniels, who's played in the AFC North. He's a Pittsburgh Steeler.
A guy we met with last year that won a Super Bowl, Mekhi Becton, going to be your free agent.
That's right. There's a lot of different free agent options. And then if you look at the combine, just some of the guys that they met with, like Logan Brown. I know he's labeled as a tackle, but some of those guys can slide inside, and he was super athletic as well. There's lots of different options here, and options I feel like that are like the Tyler Booker situation too. Like, don't even rule that out.
Yeah.
I think he slides to the second round, and that's an option for them too.
Tyler Booker's there at 49. What a slam dunk pick that would be.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we have to remember as we go through the draft and free agency and everything along those lines, I see a lot of Bengals fans freak out when you see a tackle in the first round or the second round in mock drafts, or attacking a tackle in free agency. Tackles move to guard a lot, and they do it at a very high level, especially college tackles, because most of the time, if not all the time, there's not 5 NFL talents on a college offensive line. So the guy that is an NFL talent is going to protect your quarterback's blind side. So the only offensive lineman that's moving on to the next level usually plays left tackle, especially at a lot of these smaller schools, and they'll be able to slide into guard and be immediate impact players a lot more often than those mid-level guards are. So if the Bengals take a tackle in the first or second round, don't say we're drafting another player to not play in the first year. I know we saw that with the plan for Amarius Mims, and then obviously Dax Hill the year before, Miles Murphy. This is a problem Bengals fans don't like to have. A tackle that we draft earlier this year would probably be one of the best situations for us, because Orlando Brown is ticking down. There's only 2 or so years left on his contract. If we can draft an all-pro level guard for 2 years, bump him out to left tackle when Orlando Brown's done, address some of your needs, something Casey and I were talking about before the show today, offensive linemen of starting caliber under the age of 25 hit free agency at the lowest rate of any position. So if you want studs that are young and cash controlled, the only way to get great offensive linemen is in the draft. So the Bengals attacking that with a tackle wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
So Mekhi Becton was a tackle.
Absolutely.
And then he went to Philadelphia. He played guard on that team and obviously flourished. And you brought up a good point, which is the reason that tackles, they're so frequently called tackles when you draft them and they don't play there, is for what you said. The best player on the offensive line typically plays tackle, because that's where the hardest position is. So I guess my question is, Casey, you brought up size profile, and we're talking about athleticism and stuff like that, do you imagine is something that the Bengals are going to continue to look for are these big guys? Because that's what we've been going after for the biggest, the largest, Big X the plug. Are we looking for the biggest guys on the offensive line that might be a little slower, but knowing because we drop back so frequently, is this the profile that we're looking for?
Yeah, the short answer is yeah. They interviewed the guy that is, I think, the biggest ever.
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 I'll find his measurements in a second.
It's like 88-inch wingspan, which is just ridiculous. The arm length is just crazy, which is what they look for in tackles mostly. He's also like 6'8". I mean, he's a behemoth.
92nd percentile height, 95th percentile weight, 99th percentile arms, 99th percentile wingspan. Rutgers right tackle Holland Pierce. Bengals met with him at the combine.
Yeah, and like I said before, they interviewed Logan Brown, and he's also that similar size, like 34-inch arms type of guy. That's like the threshold that they've been looking at so far this year. And it seems like they are looking for length, looking for size here. So I would say that is the direction they're going. That's kind of how I also built out my spreadsheet here for free agents. Like the Tevin Jenkins thing makes sense because of that size profile. Mm-hmm. They're looking for big dudes, and it's because they pass a lot. They need to be able to hold their ground and not get bull rushed all the time. So,
going backwards, not forwards.
That's right. So, yeah, that I would say that I would agree with that assessment. They are looking for big dudes, and they're going to have a litany of options in the second and third day.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting what happens with the Bengals in this draft. Without diving in it too far, I know I've made this point on this show before. I think Jacob shares this sentiment. I think Casey shares this sentiment. Is we've seen the Lions do this now for a couple years, and with the kind of rotating, as we talk about, everything's cyclical, everything moves very fast in the NFL. Can you be ahead of the rest of the NFL teams? And one thing I've seen people do is instead of taking the third best tackle or the third best wide receiver or whoever, these elite pass rushers, fourth best pass rusher in the first round, let's start taking the best guy. Let's get the best guard in the draft. Let's get, even the best linebacker in the draft, because you know what? Let's just fill this team with as many good players as you possibly can. And instead of taking a defective or third or fourth at a premier position, let's just get the best guy at these less premier positions. And I don't know what that looks like, but just something to keep your mind on. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh.
We're going to do a little stock exchange. You guys have any stocks? It's not doing well.
It's not.
It's not doing well. So hopefully you guys aren't
I thought
seeing
your guy
too much.
fixed that.
We're not doing
some
that.
time.
We're not doing
Give him
that.
some time.
We're taking a short break. 14:10 a.m. off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. Having fun here on a Tuesday. Sun shining through the studio windows. It's a beautiful little day here in Hamilton, Ohio. But it's probably not as nice as it is in Goodyear, Arizona, where the Cincinnati Reds are playing good ball. They're playing good ball. We've said it multiple times on this show, and we'll continue to say it. Spring training isn't isn't to get the players ready for a grueling 162-game regular season, isn't to get the arms loose, get some ABs. It's not to stimulate the Arizonan economy. It is simply there to let you win bad faith arguments. And whatever opinion that you have about your favorite team, your favorite player, or about teams that you don't like, you can use spring training as a way to fuel that. And if your opinion is being proved wrong by spring training, well, guess what? It's just spring training. Who cares? Who cares? I kept making the joke that the Cubs weren't going to lose a Cactus League game because they were 8-0-4 or whatever they were. They literally tied like 4 straight games. And I looked up at the standings of the Cactus League, and it was good company that the Cubs were in. It was like the Cubs, the White Sox, the Athletics, the Marlins. It was good company for the old Cubs. But we're going to play a little game. It's going to be called the Reds Stock Exchange. So it's not quite buy or sell, but it's going to be pretty similar. I'm going to name a player, and you're going to tell me if you're buying stock on them, if you're selling your stock on them, or you're just holding.
Okay.
You're just going to stay put, right? Okay. You're just going to be like, we'll wait.
Spoiler alert, these Iron Hands don't sell, so I'm holding on to all of them.
Nice. All right, so the first player in the Red Stock Exchange was both your guys' number one player to look forward to the 2024 Red season, Noelvi Marte. You buy and sell and hold in Noelvi Marte.
Oh, I'll buy it all. I'll buy everyone. I'm sure Elliott's selling his. I think everyone's going to sell their stock. I mean, he's been terrible for a calendar year. So, yeah, I'll scoop it all up. He's a previous top 15 prospect in baseball. He was one of the best prospects in the Red system. Traded Luis Castillo for him as the main return. Yeah, I'll buy all the Noelvi Marte stock.
I'm all good without Noelvi Marte. It was fun. I had him as my number one player, as Reed mentioned, coming into last year. I thought he was going to be good. I thought he was good at defense. I thought he could hit the ball. I thought he was a low strikeout guy. I thought all these things. And like 15 at-bats, he's got 7 strikeouts and I think a hit so far this spring. He was also terrible during winter ball. And he was also terrible during the season. I don't know how many times you can be terrible in a row. I usually go by the 3 strikes you're out method. He's at his 3.
As baseball does.
So I'm out. I mean, you can buy whatever you want on him. I'm sure that stock's going at a penny right now.
Oh yeah, I'll buy it all.
And you could buy $1 billion pennies.
You're gonna be mad when he's mashing in Chattanooga.
I'll keep my Shroot bucks over here, and I'm selling everything because that guy's not going to contribute to the Cincinnati Reds anytime in the near future.
How many A's do you think this year?
1. I bet it gets to 1.
Wow.
I bet it gets to 1.
At what point?
It'll start at 2, but it'll get to 1.
Him and Bubba?
When he can't play, well, actually he might
go play football.
He might actually go do that. He might go play a different sport.
Southern Alabama.
Yeah, he might go he could play a different sport.
It's at what point in Noelvi Marte's career, if what Elliott is projecting happens and he flounders, right? Yeah. It's just all over the place. He's playing single A baseball. At what point does he return back to the juice? Does he just try it again? He's like, listen,
yeah.
I just got.
Well, the hurdle for him there is he doesn't know how he took it the first time.
That is a good.
So
point.
he wouldn't even know how to take it again.
You'd have to get lucky. Is
right.
Essentially what this is. You have to get
Just
lucky.
Go back to Dominican, eat a bunch of burgers.
Yeah, and then get a little juice burger. Yeah, I'm out. I wish I could be higher on him. The fact that he's regressed literally at every single moment since the juicing. It concerns me very mightily, and there's no reason that he should be taking major league at bats when the Reds are trying to win games. If we were the White Sox, sure, he can come up and he can help us win 25 games this year. But the Reds are trying to at least do something. They're trying to improve upon a disappointing season. You can't do that with Noelvi Marte in the lineup.
I'm on a horrendous streak of Reds jerseys, and I got a Noelvi jersey before opening day last year. Yeah, City Connect. Yeah, it's real cool.
No.
Fake from Russia. It was like $20.
Okay.
But still, just keeps that streak alive. So I'm really hoping he can get back.
Yeah, he won't get back. You don't.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll get the juice. Maybe we'll get the creatine gummies Amazon brand. I hear those are great. All right, Tyler Stevenson. You buy and sell and hold in your stock on Tyler Stevenson.
I'll hold this stock because I don't know how much better he gets from last season, but I think he's much closer to last season than any other of the seasons of his career in terms of the output he's going to give you on a yearly basis. So I love Tyler Stevenson. Incredibly happy that he's the catcher of the Reds, and I'm gonna sit pat because I think this is the player he is, which is a very, very good thing. I don't think he's going to get a ton better.
I didn't have any Tyler Stevenson stock coming into last year. And I saw how disappointing it was like when Reed had the DraftKings stock, right? And if you didn't have the stock.
Why are you bringing this back?
If you didn't have the stock, you were going to feel bad. Well, I felt really, really bad when I didn't have Tyler Stevenson stock last year because he showed out that he was one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball, if not the National League. And I think that as you look into the future of the Reds here, he's going to be a part of it. He's going to be a part of our future. He was really, really good in bolstering the young starting rotation. He improved offensively. If he can be a 20 home run guy with us here, I mean, we're talking about an all-star, a bona fide all-star in Tyler Stevenson. So I'm hoping that continues. I'm going to buy some more stock, and I'm going to say he improves and he gets better and he plays more games this year. I think he's going to be a big, big, big factor in the Reds' success.
I am so mad that you brought up my DraftKings stock because I severed that loss out of my brain. I held stock. I think my average price was $11.
Yeah.
I sold at $21. It's $40 now. So that's tough. That's a tough one. All right. Here's one that I don't think people are talking about a lot. Maybe I'm wrong. Alexis Diaz. Buying, selling, holding Alexis Diaz stock.
I'll keep buying Alexis Diaz stock.
Okay.
I think he's a good closer, and I think the record shows that. Even though when you watch the games, you don't necessarily feel like it. Another jersey I owned after his All-Star season. So yes, last year when he started to tail off, that was brutal. But yeah, I'm gonna keep buying Alexis Diaz stock. I said he's one of the most important players to the Reds this season a few weeks ago because if he can return to that All-Star form as a lockdown closer, I think that can really, really help this team. So I'm gonna keep being all in on him because I think he has a chance to be one of the best, most consistent players on this team.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell my Alexis Diaz stock. I liked what I saw a couple years ago. I thought he was a very, very good pitcher. In 2023 he was solid. 2022 he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think what he was last year is closer to what he will be. And again, I'm not knocking what he did. He had 28 saves last year. Didn't have a ton of blown saves. I still think the Reds I think they ranked first in lack of blown saves, which was a good thing. I don't like how hard he works for his saves. I just there's something about when he's out there.
Make it easy for you one time.
Yeah, like there's base runners that constantly are out there when he's pitching, and I don't like that. He's regressed at pretty much every single thing over these past several years, and I like Alexis Diaz. I think he can be a good pitcher. In terms of having him be my bona fide closer of the future, I'm going to sell that because I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to find somebody else who can do that role more effectively. It's no knock on Alexis Diaz. He's been very, very good, especially given that he was expected to probably not be very, very much of anything.
Right.
When he was brought up to the Reds in 22. So he's done a great job. I'm just not going to buy him going forward. I'm going to sell my Alexis Diaz stock.
I think I'm with you, Elliot, as an outsider. When the Reds are a team projected where they are, which is 75, 85 wins, 75 at the low, 85 at the high, there's a lot of close games in there, a lot of one-run games. We saw the Miami Marlins 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, make the postseason because they were 25-10 or something crazy in one-run games. So you need to win those close games, and that's where the closer comes in. The problem is closers in Major League Baseball are about as fickle as the takes here at Chatterbox Sports. Like they come and go. Alexis Diaz, Jacob said this, is one of the most crucial pieces to the Cincinnati Reds this year. I know that's weird to say with a team with so many young talents, so many question marks, and he seems to be one of the things that you at least know what you have. But I can tell you're in, and this is coming from a guy that experienced it last year with the Cubs, you're in for a miserable summer if Alexis Diaz isn't an all-star closer or a good closer. It gets really tough. And I know you pride yourself on how deep that bullpen is, but I don't think there's an immediate stopgap if Alexis Diaz gets hurt, if Alexis Diaz starts struggling in April and May. I don't think there's that guy that you immediately fill in there and go, all right, this is the guy now. I don't think that's there. So while I don't think Alexis Diaz is going to be the worst closer in baseball, no, I don't think that at all. I just would say maybe it's time to sell that stock. All right, here's a tough one. Matt McClain. Buy, sell, hold.
I'll sell my Matt McClain stock.
What?
I think he's peaking up right now into this season. People are saying he's going to be an all-star. What do they have him as the backup second baseman in the National League All-Star team? That's pretty steep. I think he'll get there at some point. I think he's awesome. I also think everyone else in this room is going to buy the Matt McClain stock, so I will sell it.
I'm gonna hold it. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm gonna hold all the Matt McClain stock I have. I love Matt McClain, and I don't want anybody to think I don't love him. Here's my issue. I'm gonna need him to play
Baseball.
So if he doesn't play baseball, there's literally no way of knowing what he is. As of right now, he's healthy. He looks great. I'm excited. We'll see how many games he plays this year. And if he's able to stay healthy, if he's able to be consistent, then I'm going to buy so much Matt McClain stock that I'm going to not have any financial dollars anywhere else except for in Matt McClain stock. That are all my whole net worth will be Matt McClain stock if he plays a complete season this year and plays like the way he did 2 years ago. I'll buy all of it. Right now, I'm just going to hold it. I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to buy any more. I'm holding my Matt McClain stock. Reed's been making this point for a while now, and it's true. It's literally the entire world thinks that he's going to be really, really good, and he has to be good for the Reds to be good. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, you know, and I think he's got a great relationship with Ellie. I think we tweeted out that last night, that funny little Batman bit. Love that. I think it's going to be fun this year while he's on the field with Ellie. I think we'll have the best middle infield in baseball. I just need him to stay on the field. I need it. Because if he's not on the field, I hate to say it, he's not worth anything to me.
He's played 89 games, and I feel like his stock right now is at an all-star level.
Yeah.
So, no, that's where I was going to say. I think that Jacob is right. This is a good opportunity. If you're treating this like a stock, if you actually had money in the performance on Matt McClain, this would be a good time to sell it because I think he's currently selling at all-star second baseman. Well, I think he's definitely could be that. There's no doubt in my mind that Matt McClain can be an all-star second baseman. I just think there's probably going to be a dip at some point. I think there's probably going to be a little regression from what we saw 2 years ago. Coming off an injury, hasn't played in a year and a half, or hasn't played in a year. So, I don't know. Like, we'll see. We'll see, I guess. I think it's a good opportunity to sell. I think Matt McClain's going to be a very good ball player. I think he's going to be great. I just think his stock is currently selling around all-star level, and I don't think he's that yet. Then there's going to be a dip, then he can buy some more. The final one we do before we go to break, I'm just throwing names out of a cannon now. Graham Ashcraft. We buy and sell and holding Graham Ashcraft stock.
I'll buy it because I think Graham Ashcraft
Bulldog.
Jeez Louise. Yeah. No, I'll scoop up the Bulldog stock because I think what's that sitting at right now? Somewhere between AAA and the bullpen?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll scoop that up. I think if Graham Ashcraft's in our bullpen, he can be a Diet Right version of what Nick Martinez was last year. I don't think he's going to be, an all-star level, multi-inning reliever, but I think he can be a pretty exciting piece as a two-inning guy out of the bullpen. I think that would be awesome to watch. He's a guy that really fell off his second and third time through the order, so if you eliminate that, maybe he's a much, much better pitcher. If you just go by his starting numbers, I'm much more excited about Graham Ashcraft in the new role than I think I've seen a lot of other people, so I'll scoop it all up. I love Graham Ashcraft.
There's two Graham Ashcrafts. I'm going to not touch the Graham Ashcraft starting stock.
Oh, okay, correct.
That stock is
No.
worthless.
Correct.
No disrespect. It's worthless. Bullpen Graham Ashcraft, I'm going to scoop it all up like Jacob just did. I'm going to buy whatever he didn't buy, I'm then going to buy. Because I think Graham Ashcraft can be a really, really good reliever this year for the Reds. And I think you're going to see a really improved bullpen. The bullpen was great last year. I thought they were very, very good, a large reason why the Reds were successful. I think they're going to get better this year. I really do. I think the Reds are going to have a very, very good bullpen. And I think it's going to be because of guys like Graham Ashcraft, who we don't really know what it looks like yet, but we know he can be good in a limited capacity. And I think this is what you do. You limit his capacity, and maybe Graham Ashcraft for those first two innings like he does when he starts are really, really good.
It reminds me of, 2 years ago when Luke Weaver was struggling as a starter, and we said, maybe if you just made this guy a reliever, he'd be all right. And he goes to New York, and he tears it up, and he's closing World Series games. So, maybe that really does have a translation factor.
We're going to take a break here. The thing I'll say about Graham Ashcraft is I am so excited for a mid-June Graham Ashcraft start. And he goes 5 innings, 4 earned runs given up, and he's just so sweaty out on that bump. He's just the sweatiest guy you've ever seen. He's a fighter. He's a fighter, and that's what you need coming out of the bullpen. So who knows? If he comes out of the bullpen, it could be something to hang your hat on. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue playing Red Stock Exchange. Buy, buy, buy. Sell, sell, sell here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, Elliot Ringring, Casey McAllister in the room. I don't know why when I sit down here, I am a silly person, but for some reason I just get even goofier when I sit in this chair. I have a lot of fun. I told the story earlier of my panic attack, not panic attack, but I was freaking out this morning when I completely forgot that I was supposed to host. And I was a mile and a half away from my house, and I told these guys I think it was the fastest mile I've ever ran. With my fitness journey, I told Casey this yesterday. I ran 10 miles on Saturday, which was cool. Wow. That was a lot of fun. Sometimes you just get going, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. That wasn't a whole lot of fun. We're doing the Cincinnati Reds stock exchange. Got a few more players, and we can continue playing this game here in the final segment. Look at me. Planning 6 segments.
That's right.
On a show.
Well, I don't know if we let you off that easy. I mean, 2 segments where you get a double Tee Higgins segment and you get a double Red Stock Exchange segment.
I also just ask you guys questions and you guys talk the entire time. So it's I don't know how much planning went
and
into
headlines.
it at all.
Wait, hold on.
So I don't know how much.
Did you plan anything?
The correct answer is no, I did not. But we're having fun here on a Tuesday. Red Stock Exchange
On a Tuesday.
Billy Baseball, Will Benson. You buying, selling, holding Will Benson stock.
So in order to sell it, someone would have to buy it, right? Other than that one guy in our chat, is anyone buying Will Benson stock?
I don't think it's available.
So I guess I'll hold it.
You're
scooping it up?
Dude, that's coming on for a nickel. I can get a share for a nickel.
Well, he stinks.
Listen, the talent is there. He's clearly talented. He's clearly got athletic ability, clearly got power, plays a good glove. And the thing that I always admire, and I said this two years ago, I don't watch it as much as you guys. I watch the Cubs. Sometimes I watch the Reds with my family and friends and stuff like that. We heralded Will Benson in 2023 as the best 9-hole in baseball. Clearly wasn't that last year. Clearly far from it. Maybe the worst hitter in baseball last year. But the thing that was so admirable about 2023 Will Benson was his approach at the plate. Long at bats. What's our favorite bet in professional gambling?
4.5 pitches.
Over 4.5 pitches from Will Benson. The reason that Juan Soto gets $760 million or whatever he got this year isn't because he's a great glove, steals 40 bases. He doesn't even hit 50 home runs. He's hit 40 home runs one time in his career. The reason Juan Soto gets that much money because of his plate approach. And that carries into your 40s. We saw that with Joey Votto. Great plate approach. If Will Benson can just figure out how to put the ball in play. The thing about great plate approach is when they finally throw you a pitch, you got to hit it. And that's where Will Benson was struggling last year. He was missing middle fastballs. He's still got a great approach. If you're gonna sell it for a penny, if you're gonna sell it for a nickel, I'll buy as much Will Benson stock as I can possibly have. I don't even know if he'll play this year. But that's something I'm willing to gamble on. That's something I'm willing to get.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't think he will play this year. I don't think he's got a spot unless somebody gets hurt. I think it's right now. You had Spencer Steer, assuming that he's available. I'm gonna be optimistic and hope that Spencer Steer is gonna play in left field on opening day. And if that's the case, you have TJ in center. You have Jake Fraley in right. If Jake Fraley's not playing, it's going to be Austin Hayes. If Austin Hayes isn't playing, I'd imagine it might be Stuart Fairchild. I just don't know what Will Benson provides that the other guys wouldn't. He's not a good defender, and he's certainly not good offensively compared to what the other guys are either. I like Will Benson. I think he's exciting. I don't think that Will Benson's going to be a contributor to the Reds. I think he could be a contributor elsewhere. Like if the Reds were to trade him, I don't know, again, what a trade of Will Benson would look like. But if you were to trade Will Benson away, I think that he could have like a decent career in Major League Baseball because of what you said. I do think there is something to having good plate discipline, and
he's 6'5" and hits the crap out of the ball.
yeah, and there's power there, and sure, he could absolutely do it. I just think on this specific team, he doesn't have a role because as far as lefty hitters go, we have that. In TJ and Jake Fraley. If we needed somebody to hit against lefties, it's certainly not going to be Will Benson. We saw what happened last year. He asked for lefty at bats and he failed majorly at facing left-handed pitching, and that'll go to Austin Hayes. So again, he could come up if somebody gets injured, and maybe that's what will happen. I just don't even think this stock's available to be bought. I think this is closed off, locked up.
Yeah, it's just in 2 years of Will Benson as a Cincinnati Red. You want to guess what in his 2 years what his OPS plus is?
It's probably not that bad.
In 2 years, league average is 100.
78.
You want to take a guess?
I'll go right around there, like 81.
His in 2 years as being a Cincinnati Red, his OPS plus is 100.
Okay.
Wow.
He was 78 last year.
Okay.
Wow.
He was 130 2 years ago. If you're wondering, 130 is the OPS plus of an all-star hitter. So, I mean,
Spencer Steer's in 96.
Worth mentioning. So in 2 years, like, if we're just
like
that's one stat, guys. Well, obviously, Spencer Steer's been a better hitter than Will Benson over the last 2 years, but according to OPS Plus, it's kind of close. I don't know.
And he's only played
26 years old.
Yeah, he's only played 2 real years of Major League Baseball. 3 years if you count the 20 games he played with the Guardians. But I think that there is a career for him. I just don't think it's with the Cincinnati Reds.
I'm not moving off of Will Benson. Like, I wouldn't DFA him, or, I mean, certainly you can't trade him.
No, I wouldn't DFA Will Benson.
You
No,
can't
no.
trade him.
I mean, I don't know what he would be worth. I mean,
I'd much rather have him in our minor leagues trying to hit.
Sure, maybe. I just
There's no way you get any kind of return for him, and I think there's probably a better chance that he can figure it out than whatever lottery ball 17-year-old in single A that you get in exchange for him. So I do think the best course of action is to keep him probably in Louisville and see if he can figure it out this year, and then you have that option if someone gets hurt. But I think something goes pretty wrong injury-wise if he's starting early in the season.
In 2 years in the league, his on-base percentage is 100 points higher than his batting average. His on-base percentage last year was almost the exact same as Jeimer Candelario's, and that's while hitting 90 points less. Plate approach matters, guys. Plate approach matters. And when you're struggling, they can attack you more. When you're swinging, when you're missing 96-mile-an-hour fastballs, middle, they don't have to really dance around you. They have no reason to break off a slider when you can't even hit the fastball. I don't know. We'll see with Will Benson. I don't know if he'll get a fair shake because this team's kind of winning window is soon. Now.
I'd rather have Reese Hines up. I'd rather have just so many other guys up than Will Benson right now.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Kirby put this in the Discord about someone when the clip came out about how Will Benson has a higher ceiling than any Reds outfielder. Someone put in that Jacob Hurtubise, he'd rather have Jacob Hurtubise play than Will Benson. And then Nick Kirby, funnily, he was pretty funny about this. He says, in Jacob Hurtubise's entire collegiate, minor league, and major league career, he has fewer home runs than Will Benson had last year.
Thank you for your service, Jacob Hurtubise.
Yeah, I just thought that was a funny little note. All right, we've got a few more minutes here in the segment, so we'll keep it rolling. Another outfielder, Will Benson's position, Jake Fraley. Rake Fraley, buying, selling, holding.
I'm buying it. I think Jake Fraley's going to have a really good year. I think Jake Fraley had a bad year last year because of a lot of things that weren't his fault. And I think you're going to see an improved Jake Fraley. Again, Jake Fraley also hasn't played a ton of Major League Baseball seasons. And I think this is the year where he's going to kind of shine. Obviously, he was Mr. Base Hit last year, had no extra bases. That's going to change. He's going to hit for power. He's going to hit doubles. He's going to get back to the Jake Fraley we saw a couple years ago. He's a solid glove. I wouldn't say he's the world's best defender, but I think he's serviceable out there in right field, and I think he's going to be a big part of the team. I think it's going to be Jake Fraley's spot in right field for at least a majority of the season. When a lefty comes in, Austin Hayes will take over. But I do think Jake Fraley will start a majority of the games in right field. I think he's going to be very good. I'm excited to watch Jake Fraley improve this year. So I'm going to buy every single bit of stock in the world.
Not all of it, because anything you're not buying, I'll buy. So
Okay.
leave a little bit.
All right.
We'll
I'll leave a
Mr.
little bit.
Beast.
I'll leave a little
Don't
bit.
take it all
Okay.
right off the rip because I love Jake Fraley too. I think he's going to be back to, if not a full version of what we've seen in the past, at least much closer to it than what we saw last year. He was dealing with a lot of outside circumstances, like Elliott said. The last 2 years in Cincinnati, excluding last year, I mean, he had 12 home runs and 15 home runs. If
Yeah.
he can get up towards that number, that completely changes the type of player he would be. Even last year with the injuries and everything else going on, he stole 20 bases, 21 the year before. This is a really exciting player. The 2 years, again, outside of the injuries, last year was at a 716 OPS. He had a 785 and an 815. I mean, this is a really exciting player. If he's able to stay healthy and have a good year out in the outfield, I think he falls in the same bucket as Alexis Diaz for me, a guy a lot of people don't necessarily talk about on a day-in, day-out basis, but absolutely crucial for the Reds' success in any way, shape, or form this year. If he can go back to rake Fraley instead of singles Fraley, we're going to be a pretty exciting team. I think he can really be a special piece to this outfield if he can get back to that form that we've seen before. He's a much better player than we saw last year, and if that's where his stock's sitting at, I'll scoop it all up.
His bad year was hitting 280 with
Exactly.
a 330 OBP.
On a team that no one was hitting on.
Correct.
So it's not even, like he was hidden in the lineup.
Yeah, I would be concerned about the power numbers. Obviously, his first 2 years with the Reds, his power number, his slugging percentage was in the 450s, 468. That's great. That's great for a back end of the order, middle of the order outfield bat. But if you look at his 6 years in the majors, his slugging percentage is right around where it was last year. So the question is what's Jake Fraley? Is it what we've seen throughout most of his career, or was it what we saw 2 years ago? He is getting older. He's right around 30. He's going to turn 30 years old this year. So we'll see. We'll see. If I had Jake Fraley stock, I'm not buying more. I'm not selling. I'm holding. I think it's. We'll see. We'll see. Because I don't think it's that valuable either way.
Fair.
As an outsider, do you think that the outfield's going to be as bad as I think outside of Cincinnati thinks it will be? Because it's certainly not one of the highest rated outfields in Major League Baseball. And as I look at it as somebody who watches the Reds, I think last year, again, injuries and everything prevented them from being as good as they could be. I think they're going to be an above average outfield this year, and that probably around 14th. Major League Baseball.
I do not think they're going to be an above average outfield, and I think that if it is a serious area of concern, if you look at the three teams that most people are projecting are going to be fighting for the National League Central, the Cubs, the Reds, and the Brewers, the Reds by far have the worst of those three teams outfield. I mean, you're looking at the Cubs who, all intents and purposes, might have a top 2, top 3 outfield in baseball. Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Tucker, PCA, who had a 2.5 WAR last year, and Ian Happ. That's one of the best outfields in baseball. You're looking at the Brewers, who have Christian Yelich, who have Jackson Churio, who is 20 years old and blossoming as a star. I think they are much behind the 8 ball. But as we all know, the Reds' success is going to come from the dirt. It's going to come from people on the mound. It's going to come from people in the infield. So you just need them to be league average, much like the Bengals need the defense to be league average.
Yep.
Or right around there, not even league average. If the Bengals had a top 20 defense in the league, they make the postseason and maybe make some noise. If the Reds have a top 20 outfield in Major League Baseball this year, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Final guy, big signing last year, Jeimer Candelario, buying, selling, holding.
I got to buy the stock because if he's as bad as he was last year, that's one of the worst free agency signings for a team that makes a lot of bad free agency signings. So I'll buy it because it's just pure optimism and hope that he's going to figure it out and be a player that we expect him to be, at least be close to it, be a guy that we can put in the lineup and not have me roll my eyes and groan when I see it. I just want him to be a serviceable baseball player. He doesn't even have to be the $15 million guy. Just be better. So that would be great. I'll buy it from where he was at last year. He can't possibly be that bad.
I don't want to buy it. I'll hold it, I guess. I'll hold it. I didn't really love the move when the Reds did it because at the time there was already a surplus of infielders. Obviously, things have changed, and he needs to be good now for the Reds to be successful, as Jacob just said. I'm going to try to temper my expectations with Jeimer Candelario. I'm not going to get too excited. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to hit 35 home runs. I'm going to say that he's going to be an okay player and he's going to help the Reds hopefully fight for the postseason this year. I don't think he's going to be any more than that. He's not going to be a top 5 player on the team.
Okay, so when he was signed, I remember me and Sean were talking about Candelario, and if you look at his baseball reference page, there's one thing that you almost immediately notice. He's hot and cold, on year, off year. Let me run you through his OPS plus over the last few years. Last year, 90, below average, 100 is league average. 2 years ago, 121. Pretty good. Pretty good. Year before that, 80.
Bad.
Terrible. Year before that, 127.
Good.
So like this, it might just be for whatever reason. If you're a fan of patterns, maybe you got one here, and Jeimer Candelario is just doing the on again off your thing. Maybe he just comes to play every 2 years. Maybe it's just like he's just like, hey, it's a workload thing. I'll take one off this year. I'll be good next year. Just worry about it. So you're getting 2 years, 4-year deal of Jeimer Candelario. You're getting 2 good years, 2 bad years. So what? We're essentially paying $30 million for Jeimer this year.
So strategically, then, after he has an all-star level year this year, we should flip him, right?
Correct.
So you don't have to go through the next year.
Well, you somehow work out the deal that you get them for a year. Like they get them for a year, we get them
swap
for
back?
a year. Yeah. It's we take one of your players and then we trade them at the end of the year back to each other.
Okay.
You work that. That's what you would call getting crawled.
That's
That's getting crawled right there.
If we got one good year out of Jeimer, I'd be happy. One, all I want is 1 year. I got 0 good years out of Mike Moustakas. I want 1 out of Jeimer.
I think you might get it. I think you might get it. Listen, he's played 10 years in Major League Baseball with career OPS right at league average.
Fat tub of lard retired.
I'll move past
You
that.
didn't even have him in the headlines. That fat tub of lard retired.
Yeah.
Who?
Mike Moustakas.
No.
Fat tub of lard.
The new guy is now the old guy?
thief.
He had
Jail
He
that
had
man.
66 extra base hits with the Brewers in 2019. In 3 seasons with the Reds, he had 54 extra base hits. He had 12 fewer base hits in his entire tenure with the Reds than he did the year before with the Milwaukee Brewers.
I like to hate in sports. I think it's
Yeah.
up there with being a fan. It's the most fun things to do. I don't think I've ever hated someone with an association to my team as much as I hated Mike Moustakas.
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited.
Really excited.
And obviously he gave every hater the out with that stupid commercial he did. Reed mentioned it off the top of the
Talking
show.
about the new guy in town?
The new guy in town. So like that's what we're talking about here. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he wasn't good. He was atrocious. It looked like he gained weight. He wasn't in shape. He didn't play games. What was the most amount of games he played with the Reds? He didn't play more than 78 games with the Reds.
No, that's fun.
I know one of the years was COVID, so I guess you can put that for what it's worth. But even in a 60-game season, he only played 40. Like I wasn't asking a lot out of Mike Moustakas. He had a negative, what was that? Negative 1.6 career, negative 1.6 WAR with the Reds during his time here. Just bad. I mean, just absolutely bad. But happy retirement. Happy trails.
I'm looking at Royals first-round picks. We've talked about this before. To win as a small market in Major League Baseball, you got to draft well. It's pretty much the same way for every sport. You got to draft well. And it's double when you are a small market team in baseball. Looking at the Royals, Mike Moustakas was a first-round pick in 2007. Over a 5-year stretch, the Royals drafted Billy Butler, Alex Gordon, Mike Moustakas, Mike Montgomery, and Eric Hosmer. Obviously, all pieces on their well, Mike Montgomery wasn't. He was on the Cubs World Series team. Got the last out in Game 8.
That's right.
I can't wait for Brian Shaw to pitch against the Cubs because he was the one who gave up the lead in Game 7, 10th inning. But that does it for us here on the radio today. Thank you guys so much for carrying the load. I really appreciate it. And I apologize for coming in here scatterbrained and both scatterbowed.
That's all.
Whatever that means. But that does it from us here on the radio side. We invite you to come in and watch the YouTube side of Off the Bench here. Just get on YouTube and search Chatterbox Sports. If you're seeing this, we might, or if you're listening to this on the radio in days of future, we might do call-ins, and I think that's what we're going to do here today.
That's
so
right.
You can listen to some call-ins on the playback feature. So that does it from us here in Hamilton, Ohio. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. YouTube viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right here and doing some call-ins on Chatterbox Sports. Howdy ho. Howdy ho. Welcome back. We are going to do some call-ins, I believe. Casey's giving us the nod for call-ins. Is that
I'm posting the link now. I'm going to pin it.
okay.
Oh, boy.
There's the link. No Kenner slander. Kenner slander gets you kicked. That's the ground rules.
That's the rules.
That's the
I
ground
think we're
rules that I'm
going to
laying.
lose our call-ins.
That's what. Hey, listen. I'm the babysitter. I'm the sub teacher today, and I won't stand for it. I will not stand for it. I don't have headphones.
Oh,
so
that's
it's-
good.
So we're gonna just go through the speaker, right, Case?
Yep, that's right.
All right. But we're gonna do some call in. So go ahead and call in, guys. Thank you so much for helping me out today. I want to see you guys. Like, I want one of you guys to host one time. I like coming in here. Is it just like to have three voices? Is that what it is?
I think it's the normal number.
Yeah.
Kenner's mind, it's I'm out. Someone's got to be in. Seat's not going to be empty type of thing.
Instead of like you get a hurt tackle, instead of shifting the guard over to tackle and the center over to guard, and then you put a new guard in.
I think it would be more like you get a hurt tackle and you just play 4 offensive linemen. would be what you're suggesting.
That's good. Why can't I send a super chat? Do we have? Oh, it's because I don't know, Blackmore.
I can. But that would be nonsensical.
That would be. I like your hat, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was on sale a couple weeks
It's
ago.
a nice hat. I like that hat. I don't like Elliot's hat.
Because it says the Reds. It's a Reds hat.
Yeah.
Elliot's read it out today.
I am read it out. I
A
am
whole lot of red is what Mouse Cop said.
a big.
Mouse Cop a big Playboy Cardi fan?
I think he is.
Is
you know
he?
what? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Wouldn't wouldn't strike me as a Playboy Cardi fan.
He
Whole lot of
is.
red. Great album.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm sure it is.
So doing these Miami baseball games, I sit and talk to these college kids, and we're talking about walk-up songs and stuff like that. And I asked the kids, I was like, these managers that are college students, I was like, what would be your walk-up song? And one of them said, I would do Stats, I think is what it's called, by Baby Keem.
That's a good song.
And I said, ooh, a deep track. And they're like, Baby Keem is not a deep track. And then I realized how old I am. I'm doing this more and more, that I'm no longer hip. I remember when I was a teenager, and I would say, like, doesn't matter what happens, Reed, stay hip with music. Music
Right.
is so, stay hip with it. And then you get older, and you're just like, I can't keep up. I can't keep up to the rappers. Like, to me, the new hip rappers are still Chance the Rapper and Kendrick Lamar and, like,
Baby
the guys that-
Keem gets 21 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
yeah, and that's a deep
21
cut.
million.
That's a deep cut, and I
I've
listen.
I've never heard of that individual in my entire
He's
life.
Kendrick's cousin?
Baby Keem. He's got a
Very
really
good,
popular
very good.
song, Family Ties, which
Okay.
like has 1 billion listens on Spotify.
Boy,
I've never heard that song and not bop to it.
It's great. It's a great song.
That's a fantastic.
you think I've heard it? I don't know.
Almost certainly.
Really?
Almost
you think so?
certainly.
I don't know. I don't
Jump
know.
in that. That's right. That's,
Orange Soda, also banger.
Yeah, Orange Soda. That's a good one. Baby, that Family Ties is a bop and a half.
Two phone Baby Keem. What you mean?
I need to
It's
get
just-
hip on the rap music.
That's. I've just you lost me. You lost me. I'm sure I'll go listen to it after the show. I'll go listen to it after this show.
So another thing that we talk about in the press box is White Boy of the Year.
Great call. We have a long list going right now.
Well, 2025 is open.
Well,
it's wide open.
right.
I think Cooper DeJean is
Mac
up there.
Mac McClung,
2024 was locked up by Timothy Chalamet.
of course.
2022 we gave to Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
2021 we gave to Jack Harlow.
Harlow. Yeah.
2020 Tyler Hero.
Okay.
I don't know who won 2023.
I don't either.
Shane Gillis is up there.
He is,
I would
for
say
sure.
Shane Gillis is up there.
Just as a whole, what a start to 2025. Tyler Hero, 3-point contest. Mac
Sure.
McClung, 3 straight dunk contests. Cooper
Sure.
DeJean, pick 6.
Sure.
I mean, just absolutely unbelievable start.
Yeah, I mean 2025 is wide open. It's a contested battle. But Timothy Chalamet, I mean he pretty locked up 2024 pretty easily.
Saw a lot of people real mad that old Timmy didn't get his award.
He'll get
I don't know where to stand on that.
I watched again. I saw that movie on Sunday. I thought he was really, really good in it. I don't know what Adrian Brody did. I saw a lot of people just don't like Adrian Brody.
He won in 24.
That's what I took away from it. I don't know what Adrian Brody did to the world, but just
Adrian Brody's sick.
a lot of people don't like
The
him.
only movie I've ever seen of his, well, the Wes Anderson movies, but the Pianist is awesome.
Okay.
The only other one, Oscar he won.
He was in the HBO show. He's been in a lot of HBO shows. He was in the Winning Time.
Yep.
He was Pat Riley. He was great. I'm so mad that show got canceled. God, I'm so mad that show got canceled because it was great. And then the other one that he was in, he had a cameo in Secession. He was like in 3 episodes of Succession, and he was great in those too.
He was a villain in Peaky Blinders.
Was he?
Yeah, he was really good in Peaky Blinders. I like him. I don't know why everybody hated him, but it was very funny. I saw a lot of people. He had a 6-minute speech at the Oscars, and I saw a lot of the people that the people who win like best cinematography, they get like 10 seconds up there, and Adrian Brody's like, turn off the music. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep on going. But I thought he was a good actor. They were mad that apparently that movie uses AI. They used AI for his voice, I guess. So I don't know how that all works, but that seems like it should disqualify it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, is nobody gonna call in? Are we gonna eliminate call-ins right now?
I've seen a lot of spring training graphics and stuff for these teams using AI on Twitter.
Yeah.
And fans getting pissed. One guy posted his application and like the reel he sent in to the Mets and everything like that. He applied to be their social media manager, and instead of hiring anyone, they did away with the position, and they're just using AI for like graphics and stuff. And he's posting all this stuff and like circling where it's bad and how he's like, I'm not asking for a ton of money. Just why are these teams just throwing away graphics and visuals basically for AI just because it's so easy? That's a terrible way to go.
Yeah,
for
I agree.
graphics and everything like that. AI, I mean, it's terrible.
I saw a commercial recently that like the whole commercial, I was like, this is AI. I forget what it was. It was a pharmaceutical commercial, which by the way, I had no idea that other countries don't get pharmaceutical
Yeah, it's not allowed.
commercials. We're the only country in the world and it's literally 90% of our commercials. It's just nothing but pills that I like just have no need for. But yeah,
Do you think
I saw
anybody's ever called the number on the screen when a pharmaceutical comes up there? Like I've never have I even paid attention to
thought
one.
about
or-
buying
Well, it's wild because it's not like these pharmaceutical companies. We can't even like go to the store and buy it.
Yeah.
You have to go to the doctor and then ask, like, hey, what about this?
And the last 2.5 minutes of the 3-minute ad segment is this will kill you. There's at least a 50% chance that
here are 500 side effects.
There's a 50-50 chance your intestines turn to liquid and come out your throat. Like it's the side effects are insane for some of these drugs. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's again, shout out to anybody who's ever used that. I've never called an attorney on the screen.
No, no, I haven't either.
And this goes back to my point. I had this debate, I think, with Reed and Trace maybe a while ago when I first started. I don't think commercials matter.
Oh, they work.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they 100%.
For sure.
I don't think McDonald's commercials matter because I think everybody just goes to McDonald's.
Nope, they work.
But if there was Wendy's commercials, you should go to Wendy's.
But I don't go I'll just go whatever I've already been to all of them. So I know what they taste like.
But what you feel like is what you see more.
No, I don't think so. I disagree.
So there's 2 different types of commercials. There are commercials to expose you to something, to like, hey, this is new, right? Whether it be McDonald's selling a new product, whether it be, hey, we're a new fast food restaurant in your area, or hey, you should try this. We're a new doodad, gadget, toy, whatever it is. So there's exposure commercials, and then there's other commercials that literally are there just to get in your subconscious, just to weasel their way in and just be like, eh. And next time you pass a Burger King, you're like, oh, chicken fries. That's right.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Hamilton, you also get a little bit of weed, which is a good sale.
I thought you were going to do that. I thought you were going to do that. But I've never driven past a Chick-fil-A, and I've been like, oh,
that's how subconscious works.
But I just I don't I remember that commercial where they're all sitting on the couch talking about what Chick-fil-A did for their life. I've never once thought about that. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's gotten into the roots of my brainstem, and it's telling me where to go. But it's like
So what's Chick-fil-A commercials? What are they trying to sell you on?
Chicken.
Nope, they're trying to sell you that they are
Customer service. That they're
world-class
your
customer
best
service.
friends.
What's your opinion on Chick-fil-A's service?
I think it's good.
It's great.
I think it's good, but I don't
great.
think that's because of the commercials. I think that's. I think
It certainly helps.
I did see a funny TikTok where a Chick-fil-A employee forgets to say "my pleasure," and then Secret Service comes in and kidnaps him and takes him away. That's a very funny commercial. That's a very funny TikTok.
That's what happens.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's real. Yeah, I've never thought that way.
Yeah, no, I have the belief that in a capitalist society, people aren't. I mean, it's a $100 billion industry. Marketing is.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just for nothing. I don't think that's for nothing. You know where marketing is killing it is TikTok. I mean, just seeing all those ads, like stuff like that. My buddy sells stuff. His brother owns a company that literally just sells stuff through TikTok.
I've avoided the TikTok shop successfully. I'm I'm bad on Instagram.
Really?
I'm real
I've
bad
never
on
bought anything on
Instagram.
Instagram.
Get a lot of ads on Instagram I like, and I just dump money into it. It's not good.
Really? I'm going to be honest. I bought something off it.
Off TikTok?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're getting $100 a month off that card.
I saw it on TikTok Shop,
Okay.
and then I went to Amazon and bought it.
Oh, then you're solid.
The shoes I'm wearing right now are
TikTok?
TikTok shoes.
Wow.
And I found them on Amazon for like $5 more, but they're still like $40.
Yeah.
And I thought they were sick. Thought they were cool. Oh, baby. Looks like we're getting ready to have a
David
guest.
Shaw. What a man.
Looks like we're going to have a guest. These guys
The man, the myth, the legend.
These guys have headphones, Case. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear them.
You'll hear it.
Okay. We're going to welcome in David Shaw. David Shaw, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in.
How you doing, bud?
Legend of the game.
That's our guy, David Shaw.
That is David Shaw.
He showed up to the last, I want to say, 3 or so.
Confidently considered him a regular.
Yeah, I call him a regular.
No question
I call him
about
a regular.
it.
Since he started coming, he was a regular. The old Chatterbox live at Champions Grill.
What you got for us, David?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's on your mind, David?
I'm just filling in with what you guys were talking about with the Reds. It's struggling as being a fan out here. I don't want to be as sad and hateful as Elliot is, but on the other hand, it's kind of hard not to be because I'm tired of watching this organization just not do anything. That's basically what I got. It's frustrating being a Reds fan. It's frustrating being a Bengals fan.
Not a Michigan fan. Not a Michigan fan. Not frustrating being a Michigan fan.
No, it's great being a Michigan fan. It's great being a Michigan fan.
ReliaQuest Bowl champs, baby.
David,
Hey, beat Bama two times in the same year.
You're right. You beat me 3 times, 4 times.
David,
And beat the national champion too. So I mean, it's fine.
true.
It was the
That's true.
greatest 8-5 season in Michigan history.
Congratulations on your back-to-back.
David, do you think it's fair to lump the Reds and the Bengals when you say the Reds are disappointing me, the Bengals are disappointing me? I know the last 2 years have been bad, and I'm saying this as a Reds hater. Do you think that's fair? Because we did go to a Super Bowl, and we did go to an AFC Championship game. I have a feeling that if the Reds went to a World Series and an NLCS in back-to-back years, we would not talk about them, lump them into the same organization.
As a recent run, probably not. But as a whole, I believe so. The Reds have been disappointing since 1995. Outside of a Super Bowl run, the Bengals have been disappointing my entire life. And both organizations do the exact same thing. They don't spend money. They spend a bunch of hope. They spew a bunch of hope at the beginning of the season to get their fans to buy in, and then they do absolutely nothing to maintain that hope throughout the season and in the off season. And then when the next season comes around, we want to spew the hope again and then let's just keep the cycle perpetually going round and round and round and round and round. It's frustrating. It's disappointing when you see organizations like others in Major League Baseball and the NFL do things that you sit there as a fan and you look back, go, why can't the Reds and the Bengals do this? You read numbers like Mike Brown has the money to spend the money, but he never does. You read money like the Castellinis have the money to spend the money, but they never do. It's just absolutely frustrating. And it just gets old, and I'm frankly, as a fan, I'm tired of hearing the same talking points over and over and over again. 2029 is coming fastly for the Reds, which means Ellie's going to be going away. So instead of trying to stack this roster right now and win with the Reds right now, we want to sit back and do the same talking points of, well, poor is me and woe is me, and we don't have any money, and it's the same thing. So then you go to the other side of the city with Paycor Stadium, and they should already have Chase signed. They should already have T signed, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. We don't have the money. We don't know if we can get the long-term deal signed, and it's just excuse after excuse after excuse. And it just gets old. It's played out. And I don't know. It's just overall, it's just absolutely frustrating. And it's the same thing for the Reds. It's the same thing for the Bengals. They'd rather sit on their money and try to sell you new lobster rolls at the ballpark to try to get you to come down instead of actually putting somebody in the outfield that will fill the seats with a winning ball club. That's just my opinion.
I can't speak on behalf of the Browns because I think they are making hand over fist money, but I don't think the Castellinis are running some Fortune 500 company here with the Cincinnati Reds. I think that the margins in Major League Baseball, as we've heard from the majority of the owners, is the margins are pretty thin. And here's what I'll say about being a Reds fan as someone who is not. Don't give yourself a deadline of 2029 and something needs to happen by 2029, because if you continually look at the end and like, if something doesn't happen by here, like in life, you shouldn't be like, if I don't do this by the time I'm 30, then that's not a good way of living life. Just live. Just be a fan. Don't give yourself a deadline of they've got to win a World Series by 2029. Just enjoy the ride that you're about to embark on. That's the only advice I'd have.
I learned as a Michigan fan a long time ago, I don't put time frames on anything. I go year by year, and what the in the NFL, it's a little. I mean, let me be honest. College is becoming more like pro football and pro basketball every day. So I guess you can start correlating the two. But I learned that you can't sit there and put long-term expectations on a year-to-year basis. So yearly, I look at the Reds and I look at the Bengals with what they did in the offseason, and that determines on what my expectations are for that season. The Reds this season, I've said it on the show many times for the last couple of weeks. I don't think the team's winning more than 75 games. I just don't. I don't see how they have the corner hitting that's going to support higher than 75 wins. I don't see how the outfield is going to be able to support more than 75 wins. We're sitting here talking about Will Benson and his hitting approach. Well, that's great that he's got a great hitting approach, but he can't hit the ball. We're just relying on a bunch of guys that have been mediocre at best. And I know it's earlier in their careers, but it's the same song and dance with this organization for the last 30 years. And frankly, tired of hearing it.
Well, David, thank you for the call. I agree. I mean, to an extent, regarding the Reds at least, the Reds are frustrating because when you have such little success over a span of 30 years, I mean, you can't say anything but it's been a complete and utter disaster. I will say the sport of baseball doesn't do the Reds any favors either. I mean, Juan Soto makes double our owner's net worth. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to compete in today's landscape, given that. And maybe you say, well, don't buy the team if you're going to be unwilling to compete. Which I would say I agree with that. But that's just where the Reds are. And I've tried to just give up the fact that the Reds are never going to spend like a big market team. The Reds are never going to act like a big market team. We are a small market team, and I would say a majority of this season the stadium's not really even filled. So that's what the Reds are. Unfortunately, I love the Reds. I love them.
But Elliot, that's a mediocre excuse to me.
What's a mediocre excuse? They don't have money?
They're $30 million below the median payroll.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree.
Like, I'm not asking you to be top 10. I'm not asking you to be top 8. I'm just asking you be median payroll. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
And that's what I've asked too. I agree. I agree. And with the new TV deal, I thought they would have done more.
So blaming Soto on that's not accurate to me. You can go get a cheap third baseman. You could go get a cheap first baseman. You can go get cheap outfielders. There's organizations that do it every single year, and the Reds choose not to because they want to pocket that money and then just midway through the season so they can sit there and do the song and dance. Oh, we're young and we're improving, and we hope it gets better at the end of the season. It's the same song and dance every year, and the fans buy into it every single year. It's just frustrating.
It's the only way you can win in the minor leagues is you get a bunch of, as a small market team in the major leagues, is you get a bunch of young guys and they all hit at the same time because you just can't fill a roster financially with proven major league talent. So it's a shame that's the sport we all love to watch, but it's sadly I think just the boat we're in and the boat we'll continue to be in.
All right, David.
I just
before we
agree
let
to
you go,
disagree, boys. You guys have a good one.
You too.
See you, David. Love you.
David. See you.
See you, boys. Later.
By the way, and like I don't think he's wrong. I get tired of debating the finances thing in Major League Baseball just because I've done it for so long, and it's never going to change. And anything I say about it, it just doesn't matter anymore. Like I think he's right. I think the Reds should pay as much money as they possibly can. I just don't think I expect it anymore. I expect the Reds to do the bare minimum. And if that's good enough to win games, God willing, I hope one day it is.
I also feel like, in most cases, the ideal scenario, the ceiling of that ideal scenario with, CES playing first, or even last year, Noah Marte as your third baseman post-suspension, the ceiling for that is so much higher than, an $8 to $10 million, 1-year free agent at that position. So I don't really have a problem with the Reds if you're unable to go get the star players, believing in some of your prospects that have shown you they can play at a high level in the minor leagues.
We've talked about this millions of times about the difference between the leagues and competitive balance, which I think is at the forefront of discussion when it comes to Major League Baseball, and I understand why, because one team has finally done it, right? Something that we've talked about and lingered. What happens when a team just does it and just swallows up everybody in a conglomeration and just spends twice as much as, like, I'm looking at the projected payrolls. This is according to Fangraphs, so I apologize if it's not up to date. The Los Angeles Dodgers are $60 million ahead of the next person and $100 million ahead of the third team, which is the Philadelphia Phillies. The Reds are all the way down there, currently spending 24th out of 30 at $115 million. Worth mentioning that no one in the National League Central is in the top 10. The Cubs are the 13th highest payroll, which is a whole nother can of worms for my fandom, which is just crazy. But the point I was trying to make is the great equalizer of baseball has always been the randomness of it. You get in the dance, you buy it, you get a punch to the ticket, you go to the dance, you've got a shot. We've seen this happen before. We saw it with the Arizona Diamondbacks 2 years. They didn't win. And I get it. That's what everyone says. They didn't win. There's a few teams that have been able to win. The Royals are the first that come to mind. But that's the great. Until the great equalizer of baseball is gone, where the randomness of it doesn't play a factor, this will continue to happen. I think other people at the company have put up this point. The reason why football seemingly feels more fair, although I'll argue it's harder to win a championship in football than it is to win in baseball. But the reason that football seems so much more fair is because we see teams go from worst in the league to the playoffs in 1 year's time. We see that happen. That doesn't happen in baseball. Rebuilds in baseball are 5 years long, 6 years long, sometimes even longer. In football, you get a quarterback, you get a coach, boom, you're in there. You're in the whole shebang. Once again, I'll argue that it takes a lot more than that to win a championship. The Steelers have been in the postseason now for 9 straight years, and I don't think anyone in that 9-year stretch have ever thought that they were serious Super Bowl contenders. To where in baseball that happens. You get in, you got a shot. Simple as that, point blank. More so than any other sport. NBA, they let in 90% of the league, and really we know it's 4 teams that have a chance to win. In baseball, that's not the case. It really isn't. We've seen wildcard teams come from the National League for 4 out of the last 5 years, I believe. We've seen teams like the Washington Nationals trade away their franchise player and Bryce Harper and win the World Series that very year. So the randomness of the sport, I get it. It falls on deaf ears with the way that the sport is currently trending. But, yeah, I don't know. I got nothing really else to say. Guys, any other final points here? 12:03 went a little bit over.
One last bit of breaking news just came across. Oso Odigizua did reach that final extension with the Cowboys. 4 years, $80 million, $20 million a year. That is a big deal. That is a lot more money than was expected for him at least a couple of weeks ago. He was predicted to come in around that 15 to 18 range, getting 20 with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones wanted 5 years. Oso Odigizua negotiated that down to 4, basically exactly what we're talking about here with what could potentially be holding up Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase. So that just takes another name, at the top of our desires for this offseason free agency-wise at a position of need off the market, and honestly swells that interior D-line market pretty high. So you either love Walter Nolan in the first round or start falling in love with Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, because I don't think the Bengals are going out to get a big-name D-lineman this year.
Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat before I end this show. All right, Guys, thank you so much for helping me out today. Had fun as per usual. Got a little silly there at the midpoint. I get a little silly on this show from time to time. Guys, I don't think there's any other content coming out today. I don't think there's any other stuff. I mean, there's probably going to be some Chatterbox Reds. I know Chatterbox Reds is doing Spotify every day. They're doing their audio-only podcast, so be sure to tune into that.
Hey, if the Bengals want to extend Jamar or T or Trey, we'll have a Chatterbox Bengals.
Yeah, we'll go live right then and there. But was a lot of fun, man. I don't think Castellinis are making a lot of money.
No,
I really don't think that. I don't think they're pocketing some money, that there's $100 million sitting in a bank somewhere that they make every single year from running this team. And I think that because 20 out of the 30 owners have come out and said, we make no money from owning this team. It's a nonprofit for us. We're just trying to keep it going. And once again, I know we are little specks in the grand scheme of the universe. So what's it matter when billionaires are talking about how they're poor? I don't know. Kendra will be back tomorrow. See you guys. Had fun today. See ya.